45. At Dulles Airport, clear. Temperature 39. Winds northwest at 7 miles an hour. At Fredericksburg, fair. Temperature at Martins, clear sky. 37. Winds west at 14 miles an hour, gusting to 22. At Norfolk, fair. Temperature 46 degrees. At Ocean City, fair skies. It was 42 degrees. At Pawtuxet River Naval Air Station, mostly cloudy. Temperature 47. At Quantico, fair skies. Temperature 48. Winds northwest at 8 miles an hour. For Richmond, fair skies. It was 48. At Roanoke, temperature 42 degrees. At Winchester, fair. Temperature 36. At 45. Mostly cloudy skies. 45. At Raleigh, cloudy skies. 45. Now for a few observations on the waters. At Thomas Point, the wind was west at 13 knots, gusting to 15, and the water temperature was 38 degrees. Here is a look at the weather features that will affect the region over the next several days.
Snow.
High pressure will cross the southeastern states tonight and Saturday. Low pressure approaching to the region Saturday night into Sunday before high pressure returns early next week. A cold front will settle into the area Tuesday or Wednesday, with below normal temperatures arriving for the end of the week. Lows in the upper 20s. West winds 5 to 10 miles an hour, becoming southwest after midnight.
Ontario does not have that, and I think more than ever, we need choice.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting when we look at the data, which we got from Statistics Canada, we saw similar trends nationally and within Ontario. So the proportion of students that are enrolled in independent schools and homeschooling both has increased nationally and in Ontario. And meanwhile, the proportion of students that are enrolled in public schools, that of course are government funded and also government run, has decreased. And the time period we were looking at was 2006-07 to 2018-19. So put another way, an increasing proportion of Canadian parents, including in Ontario, are choosing to send their kids to educational alternatives outside of their local public school. And as you say, the government does not offer support in the form of tuition support or per student funding to schools. In Ontario, for independent schools, the way that it's done in Quebec and all the Western provinces. So it's very interesting that we see this increase of interest and parents actually making the sacrifices that are required in many cases to send their kids to independent schools or homeschooling, despite the fact that the government really offers no financial support for those choices.
Well, it's so political, as you know, because talking about public education for anybody running in politics is like the third rail. I mean, you need only ask a guy like John Tory when he merely suggested that if you wanted to send your child to a faith-based school, you should be able to get some kind of taxable benefit or some kind of support, and that just erupted and lost him that provincial election. But, you know, if anything we've learned during this pandemic is that parents have had to absolutely scramble to try to figure out ways of doing their job, and also having to homeschool, whether they create pods or find some kind of private tutor, something. The parents have been forced now into finding alternatives, and it's almost like this forced change now has created an opportunity for someone in charge to take charge and say, you know what, maybe there should be other choices than just the public system.
Yeah, and so it's interesting, you know, that you bring up learning pods as an example, because learning pods, which are effectively mini schools, which have popped up organically, you know, parents kind of grouping together, similar to homeschool collectives, to provide either at home or at a facility education for their kids in small little groups outside of their local public schools. And that has caught significant interest rather in Ontario, more so than in any other province. And again, the other provinces where there is more of that culture of offering that government support for these educational alternatives, Ontario doesn't have that. I mean, outside of French language schools and the Catholic school system, which is of course really part of the public school system, Ontario does not offer that kind of funding for parents. So I think that, again, it really speaks to the fact that in Ontario there is this really organic interest driven by parents, finding that, you know, their kids are not one size fits all, so they need to find an alternative type of education for their kids outside of the kind of one size fits all public school system. And they're doing that despite the fact that, you know, they don't have that support from the government. I do think, you know, that the question becomes, should the government, you know, is the government keeping pace with this interest from parents in Ontario? Should the government be exploring policies like we've seen in Quebec and in all the Western provinces to expand the affordability of independent schooling or homeschooling for more families?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take real leadership on that because, as you know, the public unions are just so powerful and they carry a huge part of the vote and they make a lot of noise about this. But frankly, if, you know, our kids are behind and we know that they are behind, I mean, we're already arguing about, do we cancel March break, get the kids caught up, or do we keep them in school? And the way I'm looking at it, Paige, I know my child is behind, not just a week, but it's going to take months to get these kids back up to speed, caught up with where their grades on, so they move on with the proper education. And it's going to require public schools either opening in the summer or somehow offering extra courses so that kids can get caught up. And my concern is that they're just going to keep pushing the kids through on the premise of, oh, just the little dears have been through so much, let's just push them through. But the kids won't have then learned what they actually need to learn.
Ranking? I think it's a really valid concern. It's a concern that a lot of parents have right now. In a way, it emphasizes why so many parents, you know, favor educational alternatives for their kids. Because I think that what we're going to see is that, probably, you know, of course, it's yet to be seen, but a lot of parents are remarking that their kids are falling behind. And I'm sure that all these different types of kids are falling behind in all sorts of different types of ways. And it really emphasizes the importance of just, you know, finding the right educational fit for each kid and every kid learning in a unique way. And so, again, it does raise the question, I think, of whether the government could support this. I mean, it's not just Quebec and the 4 Western provinces that offer support for independent schooling. I mean, 31 U.S. states and the 12 European countries with the largest economies all offer some level of support for student funding or tuition supports or vouchers for students to pursue education in independent schools outside of their local public schools. So Ontario really has not kept pace with so many jurisdictions with which, you know, the kids graduate and then compete with kids from those jurisdictions. And so, you know, it's an important, I agree with you, it's a political topic, but I think it's an important policy for governments in Ontario to look at. And there's different ways you can do it, you know, whether you're looking at per student funding for independent schools, vouchers, even variable rate or income tested vouchers to target low income families specifically. I think that. And just let me interrupt you. Have you been able to break down the data as to how much it would cost? I mean, we already pay taxes for the public education, but how would it change if we were going to, let's say, support religious choices or charter schools, or you know, how does that work and what would it cost? Do you know? So this specific blog series doesn't look at that, but there is existing research, some of which I've done, on the savings, and I do call them savings because that's what they are. It does save money to send kids to educational alternatives because public schooling, which of course is government run, is the most expensive of those different forms of school. So independent schooling, you know, to do a per student funding for independent school costs the provinces that fund that less money. Charter schools, which are only available in Alberta in terms of the Canadian context, that is a less expensive option for taxpayers than sending a kid to public school. And that's often because in the case of independent schools, for example, the government provides up to a certain amount of money, and then parents can then make that choice. Okay, if they have to pay a little bit extra in some cases, then they will pay that little bit extra, and then the cost ends up being lower for taxpayers. And of course, within those systems, they can also find efficiencies in the way that government schools sometimes, you know, haven't. So yeah, it is a cost saver overall, but I think that, you know, more importantly, we already see this happening. Of course, public schools educate most of the kids in Canada, but we do see this increasing proportion of students. Just to tell you, Ontario right now increased from 2006-07 was about 5%, 5.1% of total students, and then in 2018-19 it rose to 6.8% of students. So it's still not the majority of students that are seeking independent schools, of course, but that's actually quite a significant increase. And again, that's before COVID. So parents are already doing this. You know, should government up with that?
I give that a resounding yes, absolutely. Choice is good, nonetheless. And fascinating look into it, and I'll look forward to you looking into the post-COVID sector to see where it takes us. Paige, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much, Alex.
That is Paige McPherson, who dug into this for the Fraser Institute. Coming up, the Beijing Games. Do we go? Do we not go? It is a political decision, even though the IOC and the COC says it should not be. But of course it is, with everything China's doing. So we're going to speak with someone next who has decades of experience with the Olympic movement and get his thoughts on should we sit out the Beijing Games.
Before he has to say we're not going, everybody else is going to say they're not going because of COVID.
Radio.
Go out or did I go on? I don't want to stand up. Damn it. What is going on here?
Highs in the mid-30s.
And now it's time to go out and take a look at the roads with chopper traffic. Here's Ari Rabinovich.
Almost wasted
Some earlier troubles west 401
at
Young in the Express and a stalled vehicle that was blocking the left lane. Now clear, not that it caused much of a delay. It's moving well through here now for sure, as well as the rest of the highways in the GTA. Some overnight construction on the eastbound QEW at the ramp to the East 403. That's where the right lane is blocked. No delay here either. In-town troubles Highway 27 north of Rexdale cleared away, but a new collision to replace it in Etobicoke. And this is at Kipling and Burnhamthorpe, and lots of emergency crews on the scene blocking mainly southbound and eastbound lanes. Again, that's at Kipling and Burnhamthorpe. A message from Canadian Blood Services: join Canada's Lifeline by donating blood, plasma, or platelets, or registering as a stem cell or organ donor. Join today at blood.ca. I'm Ari Urbanovich, Global News Radio 640 Toronto Chopper Traffic.
I'm Clarice. Are you famous? Sort of.
The silence is finally over.
You are a woman with a very public reputation for hunting monsters. I can't have a reputation. I've only done it once.
Based on The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris.
Oh, at least the pain keeps
you might
moving.
I had a picture holding a torch taken by one of the person who was in that relay.
You mean the 2008 Olympic torch relay?
Paralympic.
Okay.
Summer, Paralympic.
Paralympics.
Yeah, because that was a very famous lady. She was a host from BTV, the Beijing television station. So she was one of the members to join this torch relay.
You mean she was the torch carrier?
Yeah, carrier. So I interviewed her and I took a photo for her, and I said, I asked her really carefully, like, can I touch it a little bit? She said, of course, hold it and feel it yourself. It's quite heavy.
It was quite heavy.
Yeah, it was for me then. I feel like it was not that heavy, of course, but it obviously it has very good quality.
Is that the one you got to run all around the world with it?
Lovely.
Is Meme making Western food now too?
It was made with love. You want to try?
I'm full of jealousy and hatred.
How's your buddy? I'll give you a bit. Happy Valentine's Day. Even alone, be happy. Happy Valentine's Day. Xiaxun. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks.
Family day.
Hey.
Licensed home-based childcare. Partner with WeWatch and they will support you with finding children, providing childcare equipment and educational materials, competitive pay, and COVID protocols to help keep you safe. Start a rewarding new career as a home-based childcare provider. Learn more at WeWatch.com.
It was a rainy day when Pizzaville realised we all have things we should cut back on. For me half brother Raoul, that's ordering inflatable toys. For others, it's carbs. So Pizzaville made the extra thin crust pizza. You get the same authentic Italian taste as our regular pizza, but with 2/3 less carbs. Because the last thing Raoul wants is an inflatable waist.
Pizzaville Stone-Baked Pizza. Fiercely Canadian. Authentically Italian. Be a hero and join Alzheimer's societies across Ontario this February in their quest to support 240,000 people living with dementia in our province. Join this brand new event, The Quest, and become a hero individually, as a family, or a team of friends or colleagues. Participate in challenges throughout the month and raise funds to help ensure essential Alzheimer's Society programs and services are available to everyone who needs them. To learn more, register at jointhequest.ca.
Now, back to On Point with Alex Pearson on Global News Radio.
All right, great to have you here. You know, it's still a year away, but the debate about Canada's participation in the Beijing Games is just getting underway. And we chatted about this a little bit on Thursday's show. The Trudeau government really wants nothing to do with the decision-making on this particular one. But the Canadian Olympic Committee has made very clear that despite numerous reasons that this country should not be going to this Games, that we should not boycott. They say that the Canadian athletes will be there and should not be punished and get caught in the politics. Barney is a professor at Western University, an expert in Olympic Games, Canadian nation building through the Games, as well as Olympic commercialism. You've written a whole bunch of books, and you've got decades of experience researching the Olympics and the Olympic movement. So I appreciate your time on this.
Thank you.
And by the way, I shortened your title because I didn't have enough space for all the things that you have done. But I know you know what you're talking about. Where do you stand when it comes to the issue of Beijing and sending a Canadian team, just given the current political situation we face right now?
Well, I certainly line up behind the COC in terms of sending the athletes to the Games, irrespective of the issues that the government feels strongly about. But no, the athletes should be there. They were denied that privilege in 1980 when Canada fell in line with President Carter in the United States, that massive boycott, and didn't show up in Moscow, and the athletes were penalized greatly. So I'm behind the athletes. If they can take care of the other measures, particularly the lingering aspects of COVID in China, but we'll see. They should be okay by then.
Well, we hope that. I mean, but the political climate is such that there is somewhat of a threat. I mean, the athletes have already been told, don't say anything critical about China, and there are geopolitical issues facing us right now with the kidnapping of the Michaels, and you've got our canola farmers being hurt. You've got China getting very aggressive. What if they get caught in the middle? I think there would be a concern on a national security level that they could become, part of the game for China.
Yes, well, I don't think they're going to be caught in the middle of this. Those issues were certainly, many of them were present in 2008, and Canada sent a big team to those games in Beijing. These were the summer games, of course. They went to winter games, but nevertheless, in many ways, the winter games for Canada are even more important than the summer games, because we do better in the international scale, and we're identified as being a winter-type country, which we certainly are today. So I think the athletes will be fairly safe. I worry, though, about the government says that, well, this is the COC decision, but in the end, it's going to have to be something that the government will support, because in effect, the COC is funded in part by the government, as well as its own commercial enterprises, sponsorships, and so on. So it's going to be interesting, and if it comes down to a crunch between the COC and the government, I think the government would win. this happened in 1980 in the United States when the United States Olympic Committee wanted to go to Moscow. Carter didn't want them to because of the intrusion into Afghanistan, and the USOC said, we're going. Carter says, no, you're not. You're not going because if you do, we're going to put your tax-free status in the United States as a nonprofit corporation. We're going to review that. We're going to review your sponsors. We're going to. So, in other words, they applied leverage that compromised USOC and brought them in the end to not go.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will be honest with you, Bob. I'm one of those who says I think we need to take a stand with our Five Eye partners and not go based on the way that they've treated the Michaels and these new national security laws that make me very uncomfortable because they can basically take Canadians or anybody who has been critical of the country. So I do have concerns. But the games themselves are not supposed to be political. But I think a lot of people do see the Olympics as political.
Well, absolutely, they are political. They've been political from the first time they were celebrated in 1896 to some degree. And politics has intruded into almost every Olympic Games that have been held, winter and summer to some extent, and certainly intruded during those 50 years or so of the Cold War.
You know what else happened in 1896? Cars. We don't need Olympic Games. We got cars now.
Much polarization
a guy with
going
one
on,
arm and one leg can get around.
With the
Your
games,
Olympics don't mean shit.
And we'll just have to work around those issues, and we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting if how strongly the government might put the strong arm on the COC in the end if it wants to get their way. I'm going to be an interested bystander in watching how that scenario plays out.
Yeah, I mean, there are consequences either which way, because if you say, no, we're not going, China then could have, a temper tantrum, and who knows what they'll do. They're just that unpredictable. You're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Shut up.
Well, you're absolutely right there.
I hate what the media here
The
is
Chinese are not too forgiving. I've had friends who have been kept out of China from visiting. I've been there 6 times. Mm-hmm. So I haven't said too much that will make me fall out of graces with the Chinese, but nevertheless, their human rights issues have been criticized, as you well know. And I've had friends that have been kept from visiting China for the games in 2008, for instance, because their actions, their words were picked up on media sources and so on. So they're right. The COC is right to caution the athletes to be careful, very careful what they say about current issues.
Remember, you go to jail in China, we can't get you out. I think
in China, because China will be listening. They always are.
Oh, they certainly are. I mean, just ask LeBron James. I mean, sadly, we in the democratic Western nations, we should and do speak freely, but China doesn't. They don't play by those rules. While I've got you here, I will ask you about Tokyo, because Tokyo has already been postponed once, and they are determined to get these games going in the summer. And I just don't see how they're going to make this happen. It's one thing to bubble the NBA. It's one thing to bubble successfully at the NHL. I don't know how they're going to possibly carry off the games given the current situation, and we don't know where COVID's taking us. Do you think it's too ambitious?
Well, there's a lot at stake here. There have been billions upon billions of dollars already invested in preparing for the games. And
the predictions.
It's a real conundrum.
Now we got variants
now,
that are more than 50%.
Be any spectators. If things continue as they are in Japan, there won't be any spectators at those games except probably the sponsors and the people that they cater to and have special inside. They may be present, but not in a huge number. But they can afford to get along without the ticket income. It's a good solid source, but it isn't a major source of revenue from the games. The big sources, of course, are the television contracts, which have already been sold worldwide, and the top sponsors, the international, multinational top sponsorships that the IOC controls, and the Japanese domestic sponsors have all got a hand in this, and they will not decry the fact that spectators will not be there as long as the athletes are there to perform, because television will bring us the games, and the sponsors will buy the multinational firms across the world will buy the advertising that supports all that. So from that point of view, they can go on, and I just think there's too much invested, because those television contracts are paid for, sometimes a decade in advance, and to take a big swatch out of that, those profits is really something.
And after all these lockdowns, I think people will be desperate to watch anything at this point, so they will get the eyeballs.
You're sure right about that. We're all going a little bit stir crazy now, and that's a celebratory event. I think if I was gazing into a crystal ball at this point, I think those games will go on. I don't think there'll be many people in attendance at the various events, but the athlete will participate. The television will bring us the results and live, and
oh dear.
Jackie. And he also said that robots can perform as an interactive advertising platform and info.
Punch a robot right in the face.
So far, more than 10,000 Chi-Tech mobile robots have been deployed in over 1,100 shopping malls in more than 40 cities across China, combining AI, voice technology, full perception facial recognition, and embedded indoor navigation system and a large touch screen. I've taken a look at the screen. It's
lost, right?
These service robots can proactively engage customers and personalize each interaction based on their demographic information and previous interaction history. This AI-driven approach to interactive marketing probably can significantly increase the brand awareness with targeted audiences, as well as drive sales, according to the company. So I checked the photo online and short video. It's a quite fun kind of appearance of that AI robot. Basically speaking, if you think of this robot's belly part is a big, huge screen where you can see some of the coupons, advertisement, lots of things are on there to tell the customers, hey, if you go to the third floor.
Idea. Thank goodness for Guildhall.
Stuff like that, and up from there, there is a little head. A robot look like a kind of robot head, where you can see the eyes and mouth. So, for example, if I want to find where the restaurant is, I can interact with this robot. I would say, hey, do you know where is
fictional design consultation to keep your individual needs?
And if, for example, like 20 ladies in New Orleans.
Long-term mortgage rates were unchanged this week, staying near record lows as the economy is weighed down by the coronavirus pandemic. Mortgage buyer Freddie Mac says the average 30-year fixed-rate loan held at 2.73%, while the average 15-year fixed-rate loan was 2.21%. Mortgage rates have remained historically low through most of 2020. Stocks finished modestly high.
On appointments that follow strict safety protocols. We've also updated our Click and Drive online shopping experience, giving you the option to shop from the comfort of home. Contact your local dealer to learn about our commitment to cleanliness and the great offers available to you.
Divorce can bring out the worst in human behavior. If you're worried about losing your children, selecting the right lawyer will have a major effect on your case and your life. Brian Ludmer understands your situation. With extensive experience in both family law and business law, Brian Ludmer, author of The High Conflict Custody Battle, offers a better perspective on
robots.
So it's a kind of strategy, and it's a very interesting experience to interact with the AI robot. But of course, we know some of the robots you encounter these days, they are not as smart as you thought, and that would be even more hilarious sometimes, the experience. Yeah, but with the smart one, you could get some jokes also at the same time.
Can I speak really frankly? In the place or in the region that I'm living in Beijing, I haven't run into any really smart AI.
Do you remember the first time you rode your bike?
What? Oh, see, I just
Perhaps
fell
it's
for it
because
too.
I
Damn
haven't
it.
been to some downtown department stores, but with some of the department stores around the place where I live, it's like most of these AI robots are not that smart yet. What you can do with them is to ask for direction, and usually they will not be able to, give you a very clear direction. Usually they will show you a map.
Where are you?
And you still have to check. But the thing is, you don't have to.
Vaccines are going to kind of dominate the conversation, I think, for a long time, sadly. And, especially as we get more of these variant cases being reported, and a report that came out suggests that more than 5% of positive COVID-19 cases are now the new variant. And we're starting to see them across pockets. So we've got cases now reported in Waterloo. Toronto today is reporting 5 cases at a long-term care home, but the most number of these variant cases are in the Muskoka Berry area. And so I suspect that is why late this afternoon, pretty much at the dinner hour, the Ford government came out and said that they're looking at extending the lockdown for another couple of weeks. Let us bring in Dr. David Jacobs. He is the chair of the Ontario Specialist Association Coalition of Ontario Doctors, co-founder and VP of the Ontario Association of Radiologists. Hello there, sir.
What is it? I got things growing all over me, Doc.
So, the thought of being locked down again for another couple of weeks is, that's a very long time. But is this what we need? Because I don't know. We don't seem to be coming up with plans to deal with it. And the variant seems to be getting to be more of a regular story here.
It is, and it will spread, and it will eventually become more than 5% because it's simply more contagious. That's just the way the math works. Will a lockdown help prevent it from spreading? Yes, it will. But at some point, we do need to come out of lockdown, and the question is, how do we get out of lockdown safely? The answer is obviously vaccine. But in the absence of, yeah, I know. Well, apparently, according to Trudeau, all this complaint about vaccines is just noise. So,
don't get it twisted. That wasn't sarcasm.
As you will.
They both believe
if we don't
vaccines are the way to get out of this.
Not going to get vaccinated.
Even though it's mutating constantly and is going through every possible animal as a reservoir you can
we have to have other ways of addressing
these two people take it for granted.
We're going to have to be careful. We're going to have to try to follow the rules as best we can. And if we're open, we're going to have to, again, keep our distance, wear high-quality masks, and
high quality, appropriate.
Yeah, and they were set to announce the opening of the economy next week, and I don't know if that is still a thing. I think it should be a thing. I mean, we're opening schools starting Monday, which is vital. We've got to get these kids back to school, not just for their sanity, but for the parents' sanity. But there's got to be a way that we can start getting these businesses open. They can't keep closed forever.
Charcoal filters.
I completely agree with you, and I think that what we've seen now is that we have been able to, for a second time, to bring the numbers down. That's very encouraging, and I think everybody in Ontario should be very proud that they've been able to do that. But we're bringing the numbers down for a reason. The reason that we're bringing them down is so that we don't overwhelm the hospital, but also so that we can safely get back to the business of whatever it is.
So we don't die
on a daily basis.
What you just said.
So locking ourselves away and then not taking advantage of it afterwards makes no sense. We do have to be cautious, however.
Whoever doesn't get the vaccine and doesn't have natural
have a role to play, but we need to see that rolled out a little bit more as well.
Well, we need to see it rolled out, period. Because, unless I completely misheard this, I don't think hospitals are over capacity. I mean, you look at Joseph Brant in Burlington, as someone pointed out, they built this huge facility for the COVID, cases, and there's only 7 patients in there. And so I don't get the sense that hospitals are overburdened and are actually keeping up. There may be cases where hospitals are too busy, but as I see it, I think they're actually keeping up right now.
They are keeping up, and really what it is that gets everyone in the medical community into a bit of a panic is the ICU capacity. And ICU, you can't just put a ventilator beside a bed and call it an ICU bed. Really, the rate-limiting step are the ICU nurses, the ICU doctors, and all the other support staff.
I don't get the feeling that the hospitals are overloaded. Why?
That's really why we get nervous. And the reason why we get nervous is that in the first wave, when we shut down, we had to shut down a lot of important surgeries, and that had consequences. So yes, the hospital, not every part of the hospital is going to be overwhelmed. It's the ICU that we have to keep an eye on. And the good news is that the ICU numbers have been dropping, not as dramatically as I had hoped, but they are dropping. So that's some good.
And the other good news is we're not getting a big flu season. I mean, I think the flu season has pretty much been bottomed out, as I understand. I mean, we just aren't getting it because it's more about COVID.
The criteria to define it as a flu season
was a bust.
There is no flu season.
Which is good. It's good. But we're all dying,
I didn't know what a flu season was.
So the reason
these people get sick on schedule.
It starts in the southern hemisphere, usually in Asia, and migrates its way over to the northern hemisphere. And everyone in the southern hemisphere was masking properly, keeping their distance, and it just killed it before it even started. So that was a really good thing. So you're right. That kind of takes some of the weight off of the healthcare system.
H1N1, H5N7, H7N9.
Let's get out there. Let's get back to business. Let's get the kids in school. Let's be careful. Let's not be
careful. You're going to say the words "be careful" while you're saying let's do the exact opposite.
Itself might not be overwhelmed, but it's really that core center, the ICU, that we're trying to protect.
Yeah, and where are you on March break? Because that's going to become a very big, already becoming a big debate. And we're supposed to learn this week, do we keep the kids in over March break? Don't break the system, because every time we seem to take a holiday, cases go up. Where are you on this? Because this is going to get real political with the unions.
So I'll tell you this. Put the unions aside. Put everything else aside. Let's just talk about mental health. And let's talk about public health. Public health. We should never go on vacation ever again during the pandemic because the numbers go up. Mental health, we need to everybody needs a break. Everybody needs to have something to look forward to. Weighing the two, I would say everyone should just have a March break and just lay down some good ground.
Everyone should have a March break. When does that happen?
Understand that the numbers will go up. But having something to look forward to, I think, is very, very important at this point. We've really struggled through this, and we need
in school during what would have otherwise been March
break. Doctor, I hope you do get a weekend, and stay safe. Thank you.
Will, for sure. Thanks so much.
Time now for a check on the roads with a look at shopper traffic. Here's Ari Rabinovich.
And new problems in Scarborough.
Oh, really? New problems.
And that's what we're driving for in February and early March.
Dr. Catherine O'Brien, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Audie. It's a pleasure.
Didn't they just finish extending the last stop of the Scarborough Rapid Transit? Which is an
You're
LRT.
Listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Then we were arguing about making it a proper elevated train, and now it's
Turkey is seeing some of its biggest student protests in years. The unrest started when the Turkish government imposed its choice for who should run one of the country's premier universities, breaking a long tradition of independence. Scores of people have now been arrested, and the protests continue, with authorities worried the unrest could spread. NPR's Peter Kenyon reports both students and faculty oppose the move.
The university is named Boğaziçi, which is Turkish for the Bosporus Strait. It's been one of the city's elite universities since its founding as an American school in the 1860s. For the past 50 years, it's been a Turkish state university. The school's leaders have always been chosen by internal election, until now. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government announced in January that it was installing Melih Bulu, a local official from Erdogan's ruling AK party, to head the university.
1-855-55-DRLOU or visit pinpointhealth.ca. Pinpointhealth.ca.
We're told to save for a rainy day. So why not save for a rainy decade? You worked hard for that money, and you're about to put it in there? At Tangerine, you can make that money make money with investments that tend to themselves. Our new mutual funds are called global ETF portfolios. And for as little as $25, you'll be investing before you can say, what, the ETF?
ETFs
So start making moves with your money. Because investing is in. Visit Tangerine.ca and get started today.
Frank Leo has done it again. You know, Mark listed his downtown Toronto condo with a discount real estate company from May to October. No success. After multiple price reductions and needing to move out of town for work, he's getting concerned with the changing condo market. So he contacts Frank Leo and Associates of Remax. Right away, the multi-million-dollar marketing system was put into action. The condo was sold in 8 days with multiple offers for over the asking price. Mark did.
Humidity was 36 more northwest miles an hour. Gust 8 millibars and rising.
This would be the time to use the painkillers. Damn. Come on. It's whistling. One of the oversized pictures. I need something. Hey, my screen don't hurt. What is that, at least?
I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke. I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke. I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke. I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke.
Damn, I'm not well. I'm relatively well. I'm in pain. That's no
I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke. I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke. I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke. I'm just dealing with my poison ivy here. It's so woke. poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop. So whoop, I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop. So whoop, I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop.
I'm looking at you. Is this weirdo back again? So every time I look towards the screen, this is going to happen. I'm serious. I can see the screen the whole time. Every time I look towards you, your podcast is that weirdo shit. Like I'm looking at you. I was just trying to show the little power. I'm gonna look out to see skidoos and dog sleds. Oh. I suppose you don't put like tire chains on the buses or something.
I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop.
7 kilometers, 3 calories burned.
So whoop, so whoop. I'm just dealing with my poison, I can hit it so whoop, so whoop, so.
There's nothing you can do that make me run away from this clash, yeah. This clash, yeah. And there is no DJ can put the competition to the
4, 3, 2, 1, and slack jack. Black 43 save for the package. They get their views up and then they're taking advantage. We kill it for the inside, baby. Miscarriage for the cabbage. Wrestle a savage, get a bandage. Niggas couldn't manage. Suplex on the canvas. I'm Randy Savage. You know that's a work of art. Silhouette, my niggas slack when you wear the parts on parts. I can hat that way. From the part out there, so freeze with a card that slave. Don't watch my age, just watch when I prop my case. I fought engaged when niggas wouldn't watch them ways. I'm not amazed at y'all. Talking Panthers, chop for trade. That nigga, we just spot the place and drop the strays for this trap that I got in case. It's like a hurricane. The niggas gotta rock the place. So what am I doing now? Let my dude dance with you now. When you start, get a liquor, you holler, move around. Kids got the whiskey clap, ready to cool down. The demon killed Jesus.
cases not being counted or something. 70% more transmissible. It's doubling every week or two, they say.
Getting money, we gon' tax them all. We can slap the back and point nigga like a racquetball. Bike crash, niggas still rapping when I had crap my job. Got a new strap, sweet a body I can practice on. You niggas make this easy, call Keezy. Niggas disrespecting her set, she get TT. Couldn't take a shit on this paper, it's not TP. Put my fucking arm up, told me to drink green tea. I could've washed these bags. I got an AR in this hockey bag. See, that's the most basic. Wanna step out the matrix, try to give you a playlist. I put that on my handkerchief. I'm from a gang of Crips. Donkey Kong when the banging off a banana clip. LL when a nigga getting that cannabis. Rust out whenever they beating niggas on cameras. We transport weight, it's grams. On the scale top, the word looks strong enough to bribe or have your bell product. Fuck consequence to go visit you with the bell cops. You're not home, I promise that you gon' see what that bell does. From the projects, then you gon' catch the concept. From 007, the rock collector in the complex.
Welcome to Mi'kmaq Matters, a podcast.
Round everybody up! Twisted Place, the ROC. I got a letter from the government.
Hello. This call is from the Tax Department of Canada Revenue Agency.
First, we celebrate it.
Yeah, I gotta look into that. I think they own Brunswick, they own Scotland or whatever. It's not from Thailand, but they say Brunswick. Brunswick, Canada, or something.
Gunshot liquor filter. 50 drum beating like so 50. I'm Trinidad where my boy smoke a coca. Your homie got hit, he was riding like the chauffeur. Planet of the apes, I was blood clot closer. Pop pop, come with a strap, swing off the shoulder. In the coffin, shutting the lid, it's giving you closure. You ever get close, something's coming out the holster. People ride the train, they're gonna see you on a poster. We poster, but you never talk on what we approach. Get the black go online and now you're doing the most. Kill him in my yard, nigga, like I could host. Didn't notice they pull guns when you thought you could roast. Just a dose. Know you love niggas, need some milligrams. Sitting with a milli, he be posting it on Instagram. Them dust heads love me, selling quarters out the kilogram. Chrome polish so good, swear I used to Brillo pack, baby. Fried chicken, oxtail gravy. Shaking up the ground like an earthquake in Haiti. Stop trying to rap, it's like how you niggas don't see me. You got it. Metro cell trying to play me. Said I wasn't sick, but I'm sick though. I give you gangster rap or calypso. We never stop eating like it's a pit bull. And young boy can't stop squeezing, he got his shit. We with the hammers. Shorty in the kitchen, chicken like Louisiana. Chillin' like Diana. I go to sleep with a rifle in my pajamas. I was childish, but my Gambino no Atlanta. Gunshot for your head top. For the grind, nigga, TG. Man, them niggas that we beefing is so lame. I run with them clips, my gun black and it spit like old days. 4 white boys who let it sing like Coldplay. I sat back and had a flashback on my old ways. Like knock up. 30 shots up in the fucking chopper. He got shot but shot back and couldn't see the doctor. Nigga better, cause nigga how it's better. Remembering the day my brother got it, couldn't get him. So I went and got a Mac 11, see me just a wet up. And 2 bad light-skinned bitches with a sweater. My city getting crazier, nigga. Moms losing they babies, I know the pain to have to carry my nigga to a place to yet to bury my nigga. Fuck, but since then, we got a couple heads to bury the trigger. Like what I keep a gun for, cause in these streets it's a blood sport. Not to mention links from the gun store. You shouldn't have died him here, the kitchen bodies here. As soon as niggas slap that metal on that father mirror, I need no one, I'll blast it by myself. And I'll keep beating metal to the plastic on his nose. Shoot shots to the pin break, niggas been fake. And my target is that big chain. Shotgun test, half his body, but I'm a top aimer. You know me, I'm taking half his body. Whole shirt looking like ketchup. Fuck, look at the ketchup. Found dead at the scene, no need for a stretcher.
young, I gotta reload it like a gun. Tantrum just.
Keep it up.
They're angry to know that the king will be coming back. They hating so